Madam Mayor, we are now live.
Thank you. Welcome to the 21st of October 2020 Central Coast Council's extraordinary meeting. This meeting has been called specifically for the purpose of considering the following: a financial update from the CEO. Due to the rapid evolving events in the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, it is agreed that for everyone's safety to conduct today's extraordinary meeting remotely. I'll now hand over to the acting CEO, Mr. Jamie Loader, to run through some of the specifics of the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This afternoon's extraordinary council meeting will be conducted remotely. This is in accordance with the amendment to the Local Government Act 1993, Section 747A, COVID-19 Pandemic Special Provisions Clause 1A, Roman numeral 1, which commenced on the 25th of March 2020 and was put in place for a period of 6 months. In accordance with the amendment to the Local Government Regulation 2005, Section 413L, COVID-19 Pandemic Extension of Prescribed Period has now been extended to 25th of March 2021. Councillors, you are still required to adhere to the relevant policies and procedures, including the Code of Meeting Practice and Code of Conduct. I note that councillors have been provided guidelines on how the ordinary meeting will be conducted this afternoon, but for those attending via webcast, I would like to advise the following. Councillors will be required to move or second an item by way of showing of hand, indicate they wish to speak on any item by showing of hand. Once identified, the council will have 3 minutes to speak when the Mayor calls on them. Ask questions by showing of hand, and if required, the relevant ELT member will become visible for the question to be asked or responded to. I note that questions are required to be put succinctly and without debate. For any other items, showing of hand is required. Remain visible during the meeting. If they are no longer visible, they will be determined to have left the room. Voting will be conducted by a show of hands, and the Mayor will call off the names for and against. Councillors are asked to keep their hand visibly raised for their vote. Those councillors or staff who have pecuniary interest on items will be removed from the webcast during discussion and returned once completed. If there are any technical issues during the meeting, the Mayor will be advised accordingly and provide those in attendance an update. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Loader. Councillors, I would like to remind staff and councillors that this meeting is being recorded and webcast, so please be mindful of what you say. Please make sure that you do turn your electronic devices to silent and that you are free from any interruptions, as it will make it harder to hear what is going on. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Dark and Young people on which we meet today, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, are there any apologies for today's or this afternoon's meeting? I note that we have one councillor missing, Councillor Marquette. That would be the apology. Councillors, everybody else is present. So therefore I will ask for a mover. Councillor Hogan, seconder. Councillor Gale, all those in favour of accepting apologies, please raise your hand. Councillor Matthews, Councillor Pillen, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Gale, Councillor Burke, Councillor Sundstrom. Councillor Holstein, are you? I can't yet. Thank you, Councillor Holstein, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Burns, Councillor Hogan, Councillor Smith, Councillor Best, Councillor Vincent. All those against? Councillor Greenway. Carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, first business of item is 1.1, disclosure of interest. That council received the disclosure of interest and note advice of disclosures. Are there any councillors that wish to disclose? Are there any staff that wish to disclose? No, therefore I will get a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor McGregor, Councillor Burke, all those in favour of disclosures being 0, please raise your hand. That would be unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, I will go to item 1.2, which is the notice of intention to deal with matters in confidential session. However, I would prefer that we didn't go into confidential session unless such time as we need to, if we have legal questions that need to be asked. So I'm in your hands as to whether people feel that they want to stay out of confidential unless we need to. Is that anybody got anything to say about that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Councillor Greenaway.
Madam Mayor, I'm totally with you on wanting to keep this as public as possible. I just always feel that there's so many litigation landmines in these issues that we won't know that we've hit one till we've hit it. So I just think for the, just for precaution after precaution after precaution, I think we should go into confidential, but maybe do something a little unusual, like give a report of what was discussed or something so the public can see that. But honestly, I just think people will be sitting there mute if we can't ask freely legal. And I mean, it's impossible to tell when you're going to ask a legal question and you'll be in and out of confidential. But perhaps if we can, as I say, distribute a report afterward as to what was discussed, so it's not entirely confidential, but the information around legal advice, etc., will be not made public at this point. Just a suggestion. I didn't know this was going to be asked.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. First of all, Councillor Best needs to offer a disclosure. Is my understanding, Councillor Best? I can't unmute you. My apologies.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
I can now, yep.
Good. I can see none of you participating in the screen. I'm running on an iPad remotely, so please bear with me. Thank you, Lisa. This is not my personal conflict declaration. This is an observation of conflict, and that is that we are in open session, but I suggest that we would require some closed session confidentiality, as in my view, the legal advice that we received last night from Clayton Utes, engaged by the staff, is in itself a conflict of interest, being that the advice was engaged by staff and given to councillors, but the councillors' interests are not necessarily aligned to the staff's ELT interests. Therefore, I believe there's a fundamental conflict of interest that we should discuss behind closed doors before we get saddled with this whole thing. So I move that we do have a confidential session and we put some home truths on the table here.
Okay, Councillor Vincent, I believe you have something to add.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My preference would be not to go into confidential session, and my preference would be to have some discussion so that the community, so that others hear and understand what we're dealing with, what some of the machinations are. Confidential is only if it's going to prejudice a company, only if it's going to cause an issue, if any legal suits come on the staff or the councillors. And I don't think we've got anything to hide here. The situation should be transparent. The situation should be told as it is, and the financial woes that we have and the inaccurate accounts that we have, I don't think there's any issue with that being discussed in the public domain. And the issues that we have with the Office of the Local Government not cooperating with a catch-22 that council is in, the community should be privy to that as well. So where Councillor Best is wanting to go into confidential, I wouldn't be supportive of that.
I don't want to get sued by Clayton Utes. That's all I'm suggesting. And everything else, Madam Mayor, I'm more than happy. I agree with Councillor Vincent in every regard, except the legal position that we've advised by Clayton Utes last night. That has to be discussed privately.
Well, if Councillor Best has issue, then Councillor Best needs to vote the way that he thinks he needs to vote if he thinks he's got legal issue. But if you've had advice, you need to consider that, and it's a matter for yourself, councillor. Now, what the public get to share and what the public get to hear should be a different thing. And you've been running off into confidential, and whilst Councillor Best, you run off into confidential, Councillor Best, while you run off into confidential, but then out on the public record, you're
Madam Mayor, what's the point here, please?
Okay, sorry. All right, I'm hearing your...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm trying to keep some sanity in the room.
All right, I'm hearing what Councillor said. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you. Look, I've got a couple of questions. I just start off by saying that we were presented with the report for this business paper 2 minutes after the meeting was supposed to have started. And given the announcement or the media release that was put up on social media at 13 minutes past 1 from the minister may have superseded that legal advice. Could I get a response from the staff as to whether they believe that some of this information or some of this meeting can be conducted in public, and if not, the reason for the confidentiality apart from just rereading what's on the screen there, please?
Mr. Loader.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I guess the purpose of considering whether to go into confidential or not is really around whether or not the councillors require legal advice, and we would certainly be my recommendation that you'd need to move into confidential
Thank you.
for that. And but other than that, I don't see any reason. Ms. Sullivan, are you able to assist with that further?
Through you, Madam Mayor, beyond the provision of legal advice, I can't think of anything specific unless there was something commercial, some commercial terms being discussed.
It is purely legal advice.
All right. Well, look, I'm not interested in arguing with people. I just want to, make a decision and get on with this today. So if people want to ask legal questions in a confidential session, I guess that's the way it's got to be. But it would be my preference that at least part of this meeting be open to the community as well, given that the situation's rapidly evolving.
Yeah, Councillor Greenway, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how we have the chat box, is someone able to indicate to us whether during the public session, whatever we type in the chat box is also potentially public, whereas anything we type in the chat box in a confidential is not potentially public? Because we're just using that, and if it's being used during a time when it's not deemed to be confidential, is that then possibly able to be, made public? Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, hoping I've understood the question correctly, it pertains to comments made in the chat box as part of this Zoom meeting. They're not a record of this meeting, and my understanding is that information is not retained after the meeting. So I'm not sure how it would be accessible.
Okay, councillors. So I've heard, I think, from anybody that wanted to speak in relation to this. Oh, look, I note that the recommendation, again, as Councillor McGregor said, we've just received isn't necessarily confidential. However, I guess we can open debate or open the meeting without confidential. However, please bear in mind that if it goes remotely anywhere where it goes and we need to go into confidential for advice, then I will need to have a procedural motion to go into confidential. So I guess 1.2. So do I have at the moment, sorry, Ms. Sullivan, at the moment, we're confident that the recommendation doesn't need to go into confidential. Is that right?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to double check with Jamie Loader, the acting CEO, for his position, but my assessment is that it would not be necessary for the recommendation as provided to councillors in the report to be in confidential session.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that's my understanding as well. It's really for councillors to consider whether they require that advice, as I've previously mentioned.
Okay, well then I'll proceed with, even though your recommendation says that it goes into closed session.
Yeah, well, I guess, Madam Mayor, that's on the basis that I would have expected that councillors may have required some assistance through the legal advice, and that's why we have those representatives available. So it's really just alerting councillors to the fact that that option is there. And also, I think in addition to legal matters. If there's any discussion around a personnel matter as well, that would also need to be considered in confidential.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Loader. So I guess, so I'm going to change the recommendation that council resolve that this matter be dealt with in open session.
Second that, Madam Mayor.
So Councillor Vincent, so all those in favour of having this matter dealt with in open session, please raise your hand. Councillor Matthews, Councillor Pillen, Councillor Gale, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Burke, Councillor Sunstrom, Councillor Holstein, Councillor Hogan, Councillor Best, Councillor Mertens, Councillor Smith, Councillor Vincent and Councillor McLaughlin. All those against? Councillor Greenway, I can't see your screen or your hand. Sorry. Are you abstention or against? Oh, sorry, you'll have to. All those against? No, abstention. Okay, so it's carried. Thank you, councillors. However, I will, again, if you do need to ask legal questions, then I think the information advice is clear that we will need to go into confidential and we will need a procedural to do that. Thanks, councillor. So it was carried. Councillors, I now move on to item 2.1. You want to ask a legal question now, Councillor Greenaway? Okay. Well, in relation to, sorry, Councillor Greenaway? I've attempted, you're not on mute.
Madam Mayor, I'm not prepared to say anything other than I want to ask a legal question, obviously on legal matters. I'm not going to say anything else until, well, I'm probably coming from the same direction, which is quite bizarre as Councillor Best is. So I'm just not saying anything, and I just want to have on the record that I'm feeling compromised in not being able to discuss it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, are therefore, Councillor Smith, did you put?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Look, I was just wondering if we could get a motion on the books and then
that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I am trying to move on. So therefore, the financial update, which is the report and the resolution 2.1, do I have a mover? I appreciate we've Councillor McLaughlin, I'll get to you in a second. So Councillor Smith, second by Councillor McGregor. Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Smith, do you want to open debate or can I go to Councillor McLaughlin for a question?
Madam Mayor, I did want to just add a couple of parts to the motion,
okay.
So I can do that now. Or
yep.
Okay. So, Madam Mayor, just to make it a bit more complete, I was wondering after point 2 if we could add that Council note the media release from Minister Shirley Hancock related to her intention for a suspension of council. If we could just note that, and as far as I'm aware, and perhaps after we've got the motion sorted, we can get some comments from staff. The next point after that would be that the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and interested councillors meet or have an urgent meeting tomorrow with the Acting CEO and relevant legal representation to prepare a response within 7 days, or to begin preparing a response within 7 days. With the CEO and legal representation to begin preparing a response within 7 days, to be submitted within 7 days.
And we need to
official notification.
Yeah. Do we need to remove 3?
Oh no! Look, I think. I think. Look, 3 should stay because that's the only information that we have at this point is a media release.
No, sorry. 3 that says the council resolved this matter within closed session.
Yes, we would remove that. And just the last point I would put, and I know councillors received an email regarding a matter, I think it was in the Industrial Relations Tribunal, if I've got that terminology correct, So I would like us to just note that correspondence and table it as was requested in that correspondence. So that's my motion as it currently stands, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Obviously, with Councillor McGregor's concurrence, you're okay with all those changes? Sorry, you've got one.
Look, I'm happy with those changes. One thing that I wouldn't mind seeing being explicit in the resolution, though, is the fact that we now have the ability to do our payroll through the financial assistance in our current funds. So I think it's important that that is noted so that everyone's clear about what's happening and that there's no more confusion out there about that issue.
Yeah. So I'd be happy to include that, Madam Mayor, maybe after.
I think that should, yeah, I think that should be at least one or two.
Yes, yeah, so absolutely. After part two, I think Council notes that we will be processing, and I welcome any better wording, processing our payroll as,
required, as per
required.
Yeah.
And Madam Mayor, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Bryant, is that sufficient wording in relation to is payroll as required? Do you think that's, just concur with you?
Through you, Madam Mayor, perhaps the only additional wording I could offer is that Council notes that Council will be processing the payroll in line with the extended process.
Thank you, Christy, for that.
And whether it goes into the motion or not is irrelevant, but can we get a text message out or immediately let the staff know that they do have that coming their way now? I think it's important that they're informed. They're probably not going to be sitting there watching the live cast while they're doing their job.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Now I'll go to questions. Councillor McLaughlin, you're first up with your question.
Yeah, sorry, my net's dropping in and out. I just want to confirm whether or not the payroll assistance was done internally through the council, or was it done through the offer of Tony Denny today, who's offered to assist council and offered a financial lifeline to assist the council to pay its payroll by 3 p.m. today. So is that internal funds, or was it through the financial offer of Tony Denny through the
Mr.
CEO
Loader?
probably?
Yep, Mr. Loader.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the payment the council will be able to make of the staff payroll is as a result of funding that's been brought forward from the Office of Local Government, which consists of those financial assistance grant payments as referred to in point 2 of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Greenway.
Just again, I'd like to ask a legal question.
Okay, I'll take that on notice, and we'll just.
I can't vote on this till I've had it.
I understand that, Councillor Greenway, but let's just get what we can in open session, and then I'll go to closed session. I'm hearing you. Thank you, Councillor Best.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is an unusual situation. I'm agreeing with Councillor Greenaway, and I do take exception at Councillor Vincent's yet again diatribe about wanting to park things in confidential. I simply have got some serious legal questions that I don't wish to expose the council to more risk. Of course, I want this all in open. I've wanted it in open for 2 years now. I wrote a letter 6 weeks ago to the OLG whistleblowing this mess. So I don't want to park anything in confidential other than stop us being sued. So that's the point of that. Now, Madam Mayor, if I could, do have some questions, if I may. And these events are moving very, very quickly. I'm on my iPad. I'm really limited here, and possibly the most important meeting of my 25 years in representing my community on the back of the Minister's media release. But Madam Mayor, speaking of meeting releases, you've put one out, I understand, this afternoon. And I've not able to read it yet, although I had a brief conversation with you this afternoon. Would you like to, or please elaborate to the room and for those that are watching what your media release represented? And from that, I have some clear supplementary questions to you, if I may.
Councillor Best, I'm going to say to you, I I've got to get it off my
You're
phone.
right.
'Cause
I'll be patient. It's 25 years of patience here. It is in essence the motion I moved 2 weeks ago, but again was voted down.
Sorry, it wasn't sent from my phone.
You're right, I understand.
So I'm going to have to leave the room to get it.
All
Sorry,
right,
just
well,
put me totally in the spot, and I cannot get it
I'm
on
sorry,
my
Lisa.
computer like you.
All right, well, can
So-
we just hold for 30 seconds while you do that? Just put the meeting in suspension for 30 seconds and we can just take a breath here.
Hang on, I'm sending.
Because it really is important. Well, I could go to Mr. Loader for a couple of
Yep,
questions,
you can do that.
but I think it's important that you might want to hear his answers, particularly that we're not in confidential.
Yep.
So I think it's fair that you stay online, but we should wait maybe for you to get that release. Then I would like to ask Mr. Loader some questions here at our wake.
Sorry, it's coming. So do you want to start?
Yes, well, you can stay online, Lisa.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. To Mr. Loader, through you, Madam Chair. Jamie, you can hear me all right?
Yep.
I think that's a yes, was it?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie, you and I have spoken a number of times around this issue, and we spoke today a number of times. We spoke last night. As Councillor McLaughlin outlined, there has been a somewhat almost, it's a business, but a philanthropy offer by, local business people to try and assist their community through a $5 million, 3% interest rate offer to the council to make the wages go round. However, in our discussions today, how one looks at and interprets the funds available in restricted and unrestricted funds, that we could indeed actually find a way through the entitlements account, the restricted entitlements account, actually make these payments. Could you elaborate to council on that observation that is available to us now since last night's meeting?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Best, I guess some work that staff undertook this morning to really understand all of the avenues available able to pay staff in case we ended up in that situation today. And that work really involved digging deeper into Dennis's the D&B consulting report that councillors were briefed on the 6th of October. In short, it's a really complex issue, and I'm trying to make it as simple as I can. There's no clear explanation available at this point in time around how Mr. Benisevic has arrived at his conclusions around the access to internally restricted funds versus externally restricted funds. And I guess that's the work that we were undertaking today to really get an understanding of that, and also to get a more current picture on where those restricted funds are at the moment. So I did put a call in to Mr. Benisevic earlier today to have a discussion with him, and I'm waiting for him to call me back. And I guess in light of the information from OLG, that matter isn't as pressing as it was. However, it's still work that is very much worthwhile pursuing, and that's going to be our focus over the next few days.
Well, I'd beg to differ. I think it's quite pressing, and around the discussions, it is how we choose to interpret the restricted and unrestricted funds. And if we had not been offered the 6.2 except suspension money from the minister, then we were going to be able to pay the wages legally and lawfully out of those funds. That's how I saw it to be. And that was the interpretation we were going toward before this 11th hour poison chalice from the minister arrived.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct, Councillor Best. That's certainly the direction we're heading.
And to your credit, Jamie, I'll say that publicly, to your credit, you have dug deep here to find a way for us to do this, and in a legal way, I may say. So we had on the table a way to go forward here today, because you worked with this. Thank you. Interpret it to be. We can lawfully go forward.
Sorry, Councillor Best, you really broke up a lot then. And
as I interpret it to be, we lawfully can go forward with these, this analysis of the accounts post Mr. Banasenic's initial review and view of the matter.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. As I've said, that appeared to be an option. Yes. that was available to us. Obviously, subject to some further advice, both legal and from Mr. Banasevic.
Yeah, but very much so that we could move down that path. Look, also to and I may get stopped here, but you know, in light of some of my colleagues, you know, political attempts earlier to indicate that I want to hide things away, as you know, I'm always wanting to open the door. But Clayton Utes last night, senior counsel, indicated that, am I getting close? Am I getting to be shut off? I am, aren't I? And the senior counsel said last night in the confidential session of the council that, do I stop now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, tell that to Councillor Vincent as to why I was seeking, and Councillor Greenaway, to her credit, while we're trying to be responsible here. So are we going to have an option to take this to confidential?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. And Councillor Vincent can grow up.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions.
Thank you, Madam
Waiting. Councillor Sundstrom. Oh, where are you? Oh, sorry, Councillor. Councillor Sundstrom, you got a question?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I think I can be heard now, can't I? Yeah.
You can.
Okay. There's reference made to the media release from the Minister for Local Government in the motion. And so I just had a question about a topic that she raises in her media release. It's around, I guess it's around the forensic investigation that'll be going on. That's purpose is to find out the root cause of this problem. Maybe it's through you, Madam Mayor, to the CEO. Has that root cause been found at this stage? Is there a smoking gun? Because it seems that Ms. Hancock has found one.
Mr. Loader?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Sundstrom, I'm reading the media release. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to in terms of a smoking gun, but in answer to your question on the determination of a root cause, I'm sure you'll appreciate that our focus has been solely on our liquidity issues over this coming week. The work around engaging the forensic audit, we're still waiting for feedback on the scope of that engagement from a number of external agencies, and that hasn't been finalised as yet. But that's in terms of priority, it's number 2. But obviously, number 1 is our immediate liquidity issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. You have a question?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've got a question, but just a correction first up. Councillor Best was happy to rush into confidential yesterday, receive confidential advice. A lot was done in that session yesterday that didn't need to be in confidential. The council came out, they made a quick statement, and that was it. So today, it's not about rushing off like Councillor Best wants to. And what happens is, after a confidential yesterday, Councillor Best is out there saying, oh, well, I didn't want to be there. It shouldn't have been there. We shouldn't be in confidential. So you can't have your cake and eat it too, Councillor Best. Here we are in open session with the public listening, and you are the one at the beginning of this meeting wanting to run off into confidential again. So let's have the discussion. You had your legal advice yesterday. We'll go back into confidential and we'll talk about legal, but let's get some facts on the table here now so the public can hear and not run off like you want to, Councillor Best. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Acting CEO, Jamie. Yesterday I was questioning the investment reports that the 18, 19 and 20. And I was waiting for a response on that. Hopefully that could be discussed today. And I see that you're going back now reviewing what D&B Consulting has provided, and you're seeing the landscape a little bit differently, I feel.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Vincent, absolutely reviewing all the information that we have available, and apologies that I didn't get to the last of your emails, and today has been kind of non-stop, so I haven't had that opportunity to really sit down and provide that response. So I actually haven't even seen your last one. I know I was responding to your messages after the meeting last night, but we are, as I said, looking at all options and certainly looking deeper into Mr. Benacevich's report, and I'm waiting for that return phone call to have that further discussion with him.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Look, thanks for that response, Acting CEO Jamie Loader, Mr. Loader. Yeah, look, you are pretty good at getting back to people, and you've been under the pump with this. My questions were more about from 18 to 19 to 20. We seem to go from about 447 million in investments down to 445 in 19, and then we ended up at about 338 in 2020. And my question was, were those investments did they have poor returns, or were the investments just taken out and spent? And I could see there from the 19 to the 20, the restricted and unrestricted funds internal were split. So there was a difference in the way it was reported and accounted. Has there been any investigation into that area yet?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's a number of questions, I think, in that. So the first question around the performance of the investments, it's, that investment portfolio is quite complex. It's not that full amount isn't invested into the one term deposit, if you like. There's multiple, and they mature at different times, and there's a lot of movement in that area. The difference in that balance between 18-19 and 19-20 indicates where some of those funds have been used through unrestricted cash, and I think the remainder of your questions are probably going to come out as part of the forensic audit. We haven't had the opportunity to really dig into those numbers as yet.
Thanks. One more question. So as a council, I've really been pushing for D&B Consulting to be part of councillors' arsenal to be able to try and find what the root cause problem is here. At the moment, we seem to be getting responses that he's done his bit and that's it. But for someone who's tracked while on council for the last decade, for someone who's, or 15 years, for someone who's had dealings in Gosford, I would have thought he'd be invaluable in trying to work through this and get to the root cause. As a councillor, I'm getting advice that the staff are providing through consultants that the staff are suggesting or commissioning. But as a councillor, I'm seeking for to be able to have our own advice or our own sounding board independent of staff. So what ability can you provide for councillors to have that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Vincent, if that's the will of the council, then it's my understanding is that you just need to resolve that way, and that would become a direction for staff to undertake.
Could you suggest some wording then for this motion that we've got live at the moment? Maybe a 0.7 there, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy as the Mayor of the motion to have a go at that with the assistance of the Acting CEO if needed. I just wonder if we could add a 7. So Councillor Vincent, my understanding of your comments is that you'd like the consultant that you referred to be involved in providing further information to councillors. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. My premise there. hang on, I'm not on the, my premise there is that D&B
Look,
consulting.
I understand your premise, Councillor Vincent. I'm just trying to understand the wording that will address your concern. Or
Okay, well, let me preface that as far as D&B Consulting has been an external auditor for a long time, 15 years for a while, maybe longer, and Gosford. D&B Consulting also provides local government training for councillors. And as councillors in this situation, where this situation's just hit us cold, we were given figures only 2-3 months ago saying that this is where we are at. And then 3 weeks ago, we find out that's all incorrect. And I believe that Dennis has the ability to drill down quickly, to tap into where it's needed, but also he has the ability to train councillors and help councillors where they're asking for extra information to be able to understand the financial situation.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. So I'm just wondering, and I will sort of seek input from the acting CEO, but whether we could include in part 7 that councillors have a financial session next Monday afternoon, which is our normal briefing afternoon, and invite D&B Consulting to be a part of that in the first instance. Mr. Loader, would you see any problem with that being part of this resolution?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, it'd only depend on Mr. Benisevic's availability, I would suggest.
Okay, thank you. And look, I will say next Monday, since things are moving quite quickly, and I think there have been a number of matters raised that I think we do need answers to, and it would be good to have those answers in a workshop where we can really get an understanding of how those figures have changed. So if my seconder approves of that, I'd be happy with that wording. Yep, okay. There is just some tidying up of, sorry, Councillor Vincent.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Smith, if you could also include in there that those councillors that have work commitments or are unable to attend that briefing, if that briefing could be recorded, put on the hub, so that councillors can review that information that's provided and everyone has the same information.
Yes, can we just put, look, subject to any confidentiality requirements, but I certainly understand your intention, Councillor Vincent, and with the CEO's concurrence, I would certainly see that as appropriate, that all councillors have availability of that information.
This is seen as training, is seen as guidance, it's seen as another set of ears and eyes to be able to give councillors ideas. And while we've had the brownie points list of who's spent what allowances and who hasn't, it's been pretty clear that some councillors have been pretty much shut down into going into training and to be looking at things where they could be doing self-improvement, self-development, because it comes up on the brownie point list of what your expenses are, which is, I think, just ridiculous.
Thanks, Councillor Vincent. Okay. Councillors, I've got Councillor Holstein that's asking some questions, and then I have got a procedural from Councillor Greenaway, so I'll take Councillor Holstein.
Madam Mayor, could I just tidy up some of the wording in the motion?
Oh, okay.
There's just a couple of things that I've missed before you go to Councillor
Holstein, just
if that's okay. Yep. So in part 5, I think it was intended that the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and any interested councillors meet tomorrow with the acting CEO and legal representation to begin preparing a response to be submitted to the Minister within 7 days from official notification. Within 7 days from official notification.
And by official, you're referring to some sort of email? From
some correspondence from the Minister, yeah.
Mr. Loader, I would imagine that somebody's checking your inbox?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's open in front of me.
Oh, great. Nothing come through just yet?
Not as yet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was the only point.
Okay, Councillor Holstein, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yep, can. Thank you.
Okay. Look, firstly, thank you, Jamie, for your efforts. It is good to hear that we have a pathway. It's also good to hear from the Minister that there's been some allowances to ensure, and I think the reassurance to the staff that the wage aspects has now got two bases that can be covered and we move forward. I want to be careful what I say because there is a lot of questions that have been asked in regard to our financial position, and there's still many questions to be asked that unfortunately aren't going to be answered until the forensic audit is complete or as more information comes to hand. I am disappointed by the Minister's comments in regard to the concerns that may see the council dismissed and an administrator put in, but we have time now to put that submission forward, and I'll take whatever opportunities I can to be part of those comments. But councillors, if there was only small snippet of one of the issues before us as councillors and one of the range of issues that we've had in the staff's management of this issue, please, councillors, I've listened again to yet another sniping back and forward between us. We've got to just put things aside and move forward. And just the comments that have come through in several of the speakers in this short meeting are a clear indication that we don't have that ability to work together. And whilst we can add in everything from bushfire, flood, pandemic, coastal erosion, the issues of amalgamation, which unfortunately were thought by some people would be cheap and easy and then done. Bringing councils together, the inexperience that has come in with the council. And let me tell you, with 30 years experience, some of these have been shocks to me, some of the issues that we've had to deal with and some of the steps that have had to be taken. We as a team is essential. Can we keep the sniping out of it and the political differences? It's not us and them anymore. It's not Wyong or having an argument amongst our colleagues that we were previously in council with. It's about trying to get an outcome, because you've got 7 days to get up a submission to convince the minister. The one thing you're going to have difficulty convincing the minister is that there is a bit of teamwork here and trying to right the wrongs, to uncover where the problems exist and to rectify them. And yes, councillors, we could all do with better management and better understanding of our financial situation, but we've got to know what we need to fix. We've got to know where those issues have come from, because like several have said, it came out of the blue. And yes, some can say, oh, I knew this and I knew that. Let me tell you, every one of us councillors have said we were shocked, mortified, horror, and extremely angry of where we were put. Our submission back to the minister will be crucial to see whether we can move forward, because while some will say an administrator is the way to go, let me tell you, some of our issues stem back when the administrator was in, and the lack of public being and through their councillors to be able to have an input. Rest of my questions I'll reserve for when we go into confidential and move forward, but I'll again say staff and the wage issue seems to be addressed on a couple of fronts. Thank you, the acting CEO, for what you've done and where you've come up to and the input of being able to move forward. Thank you for the Minister for giving us that safeguard in regard to the financial assistance being able to be moved forward. Let's just now work as a team to resolve the issue and move forward. This community will not be better off if we go into administration. This community will not be better off if we don't work as a team and cut the sniping out and just move forward with what we have, and that's representing our community. End of comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstein. Councillor Greeno, you got a procedural?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in regard to the gravity of the situation and the need to be able to speak freely, I'd just move that we do move into confidential so some of these pressing questions can be asked. And again, whether we make a resolution on this, but just I don't want the actual content confidential. I just want to be able to ask questions without accidentally saying something. So maybe we go into confidential with a summary of discussions made available afterwards.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Greenaway's procedure to move Councillor McGregor? Before I go that way, Ms Sullivan, in relation to when we go into confidential, what then comes out of confidential apart from can you please explain what can and can't come out of confidential once we go into that session? Can we provide the community with notes?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's two ways Council could proceed. Council could resolve to go into confidential session, consider the matter and make a determination in confidential session, and then return to open session and report back to Council, report back to the public webcast the outcome of the confidential session. The alternate process Council may wish to take is to resolve to go into confidential session to discuss any confidential matters, then resolve to come into open session for the conclusion of discussion and consideration of this item.
Yes, I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to go into closed session for confidential questions. That's what I'm assuming. And then we will come out and resolve the motion that's put. Councillor Best, I'm seeing I've been told you have a question. Sorry.
Mayor, I hadn't finished the resolution, my motion, I mean.
Oh, okay, yep.
Because having listened to what Ms Sullivan said, I'm not sure whether we are able to provide any summary of the issues. For example, we might not say specifically what the question was, but a general topic. So are we not able to do that? She said there are two ways of moving forward, but you're saying that's not a possibility, Ms Sullivan?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would suspect that the way to achieve that would be the second option I presented, whereby Council would resolve to go into confidential session for the purpose of considering legal advice, consider that legal advice in confidential session and resolve to come out of confidential session to continue the matter.
Right. Thank you. I can be muted now and you can ask whoever you're going to ask.
Okay. Councillor Best, you've got a question?
I've got a question. Thank you. I had you going and getting your press release and sharing that with the community. Can you now share that with us, and then I will ask my questions on the back of that?
Yeah, actually, Councillor West, I'd rather go into confidential, deal with it, and then I'll come back. I have it, yes, but let's just get the confidential questions out of the way, and then we'll come back.
Well, that wasn't confidential, was it? Obviously, it's a press release.
Yeah, so it's not. It's not confident. My press release isn't confidential. That's correct. But however, I have a procedural motion there to go into closed session.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor.
Point of order.
Vincent.
Councillor Best is obsessed with your press release, and he's not wanting to discuss that for any reason on the matters at hand or what's on the thing here. You've given him an undertaking that you've provided him with the press release. Now, is he running the meeting or are you, Madam Mayor? Because I thought I heard you tell him that you weren't going to discuss that and you wanted to go and do things.
Well, that's what I've said. That I'm happy to do that after we come back out of closed session.
Well, Madam Mayor, when we opened, I asked a couple of questions. I asked you, could you share the press release? You said you would get the press release. And I said, on the back of that, I have some comment and some further questions, and I'd like to speak to the matter thereafter. And I'm still waiting for the release, and I would like to speak to the matter in open council. I don't want to go into confidential. I want to actually speak about this matter and have a chance to speak about it. And I'd like to do that. And I simply wanted, I've not read your press release, and I understand it's the dismissal of the general manager. That's, I don't know its title even, but I understand that's the content of it. And I think we should share that. But I want to speak to this in open council. I do have some very technical.
And Councillor Best, I'm more than happy to speak to it in open council.
You can wait till later.
Well, I've got a procedural motion that people want to have discussions in closed session up there. I'm more than happy to discuss my press release back in open session, but for now I have a procedural motion there. I'm going to move in, I'm going to put the procedural motion. If it gets rolled, then we stay where we are.
With respect, but before procedural, I asked the question for that, and you said you would oblige, and I said I would speak to it after. That's before procedural came into light. I have a right to speak to the matter on the floor now. I've been denied that.
I'm not
in open
denying you the
council.
matter.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Sorry?
Point of order, if I could.
Councillor
As
Greenway.
I understand it, my motion's on the floor.
That's right. Your motion is on.
Can we please address the motion? I don't want to speak to it. I just want to put it.
Yep.
All right, well, I'll speak to the motion, Madam Mayor, of procedural. Thank you.
Okay, speak to the motion, Councillor Best.
Try that one on. Look, ladies and gentlemen,
Sorry,
the
Councillor
public
Best, I've got a point of
are
order.
watching.
Councillor Best, I've got a point of order. Councillor McGregor.
Madam Mayor, you've repeatedly said that you were putting the procedural motion, which means that we have to vote on it. So
Yeah,
the point of order is that you've already put the motion. We're now being unable to vote on it because one of the councillors is speaking when they're out of order and shouldn't be speaking. We should be putting the motion, as you said.
I understand.
Which is rubbish. This is why we're getting sacked, guys.
Councillor Best wants to speak against
Thank
the
you.
procedural.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that common courtesy. And I don't want to verbal colleagues, but Councillor Holstein just messaged me on the private chat saying, I rest my case. And he's correct in 100% of the term. This is why we are looking down the barrel of dismissal. I simply wanted to speak on the motion. I have some seriously sensitive issues around Clayton Utes and matters that we discussed yesterday. I respectfully requested that that be a portion of the meeting in confidential. I was then lampooned and attacked by Councillor Vincent saying that I want to hide everything from my community, which is just absolutely outrageously ridiculous. Do you people really think that the community is going to take us seriously with this kind of shenanigans going on? We have this motion sitting here, which is the most serious matter that we could possibly imagine we're facing. And as Councillor Holstein says, we're attacked from the get-go. Madam Mayor, you've put out a press release that's asking for the General Manager to go. I haven't read it yet, and I'm sure you'll read it to us sometime after we come back in. But I think it's important, if we're going to go into confidential, that kind of information be shared, because I don't think all the councillors have seen this. And I did move a few weeks ago that we move a vote of no confidence in the General Manager, because the problems that we're facing here, councillors, emanate from the bowels of our building. Not wishing to pass the buck, but that's where they emanate from. Madam Mayor, to your credit, you have in control of this council all the procedures, policies, governance, our committee, auditors, internal auditors, external auditors. All the checks and balances are sitting in place, and they have been ignored. That's the only reason we're here, is because they have been ignored. And if the minister wishes to remove the council, it's a matter for the minister, but at the end of the day, that isn't going to solve the problem, because the problem exists from within the operational controls of this business. And I'll have more to say when we come out of confidential about the motion on the page, but I think to cut the meeting in half right now with a procedural, whilst our community's listening, we could easily deal with confidential toward the end of it. And that's what I intended to seek at the beginning of this whole exercise. But again, as Councillor Holstein outlined, every time I raise something around good governance, good fiscal responsibility, ask about the Q reports, ask about staffing levels, ask about developer contributions, my microphone's shut off, I'm quarantined, I'm politically vilified, and guess what? We've gone and done to ourselves this, because of the nonsense that's going on right here and now. So shut the meeting down and off you go into confidential. It's a matter for you.
Thank you, Councillor Best. Councillors, I'll therefore move the procedural that we move into confidential session to consider legal advice. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Greenaway, Councillor Matthews, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Burke, Councillor Sunstrom, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Mertens, Councillor Hogan, Councillor Smith, Councillor Vincent, all those against. Councillor Pilling, Councillor Gale, Councillor Best. Councillors, the matter has been resolved to go into confidential. We will now go into confidential for those questions that need to be asked. Shane, can you just give me the heads up as to when I'm ready to go? Thank you, members of the community. Thank you for your patience. We're now back in open session. Councillors, I'll now go back to the business at hand, which is the recommendation that was on the screen from Councillor Smith and Councillor McGregor. Do I have anybody? Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, just based on an earlier discussion, just wanted to amend the wording. I think there was a change that we seek independent legal advice. So I just wonder if part 5, interested councillors meet tomorrow, and the acting CEO and legal representation. I think if we can put independent legal representation, and I would be hopeful that that is possible to do by tomorrow. So I'll just leave that with the acting CEO. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Smith, just a question on that. Are you referring to independent to legal representation we've already engaged, or are you referring to external legal representation?
Look, I think the commentary was external. I wonder, Madam Mayor, and through the acting CEO as well, whether we could once again approach Local Government New South Wales to be available to provide some independent legal advice tomorrow in relation to responding to the correspondence from the Minister. Perhaps that would be a way forward, as it needs to be quite timely. In the first instance, for a meeting tomorrow, if we could impose or request assistance from Local Government New South Wales, and then we could take it from there in terms of whether we need to seek additional or alternate legal advice. So I'll just suggest that that is the intention for tomorrow's meeting. And if my seconder is okay with that, then that's where I'll leave that, Madam Mayor. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McGregor is seconder of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, unfortunately, we've just spent several hours in confidential, which we can't reveal the
Councillor McGregor, you've frozen.
discussions that were had there, but I'd like to speak to the motion. Is the signal better now?
Yep.
Look, when I first ran for council, one of the main motivations was to tidy the place up. As someone who'd lived on the Central Coast all my life and had a deep interest in local politics and activities, I wanted to see this place work better for all people of the Central Coast, and particularly to see funding redirected to areas that had been neglected and left behind for some time. I wanted to try and work together as a team with other people to improve the governance, to improve our local amenity, as well as our financial position. Councillors with contradictory advice, varying advice in confidential or sometimes out of confidential. The community doesn't know what's going on. I'm fairly confident that a lot of the councillors are unsure whether some of these financial issues are coming from ignorance or through intention. I believe senior staff are also quite concerned about this. The response from the Minister about the financial assistance, that is an important aspect here. However, I do need to strongly speak out against the issue of entering administration. If we are entering administration, it is nothing more than scapegoating 15 different councillors, and it is nothing more than a coup against a democratically elected government. As simple as that. I mean, people just put in that we've been lumped in. The political wing have been in the dark. It seems that parts of the operational wing have certainly been in the dark, as fair and balanced. It's quite simply one of the most ridiculous situations. You couldn't make some of this stuff up. The kind of failures that we've seen here and that people are being subject to, and there's real life outcomes to this. And I think it's really important that independent and external people get in there and get to the root cause, particularly given that we've had 4 different auditors now, and the state government's one said that this is a problem with the restricted funds going back to 2001. This is an issue that needs stuff is not going to make anything better for anyone. Some of this was obviously happening under the last administrator. A new administrator is not going to be capable of fixing this problem. It needs to be done externally, independently, and with the best financial and legal people looking at it as possible. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Best, you have a comment and a question.
Unmute. Can you hear me okay?
Oh,
Thank
no,
you.
you're not really.
I'm clear. Well, my question is we are accepting from the minister the kind offer of 6.2. I understand that's correct. That's correct, isn't it? We're accepting the $6.2 million.
Yep. Well, it doesn't say that. Doesn't.
What I would like to. No, it doesn't quite say that, but that's what we're doing. I would like to, for clarity's sake, and to indicate that we are working this problem, is that further to the general manager, acting general manager's comments earlier, something to the effect, it can go as 9 if you so wish, Madam Mayor, and I'm in your hands. If you want to, fine. If you don't want to, I won't. But that, and it would read that, I'll read it quickly so you can hear it, and then we can type it if you want it. The council notes the advice from the acting general manager that funds are available to pay current wages in a lawful manner. Are you okay for that addendum to the motion?
I moved it, Councillor Best, and I'm happy for that wording. Happy for that wording to be included.
I'll read it in slowly then. Thank you, Councillor Smith. The council notes the advice from the acting general manager that funds are available to pay current wages in a lawful manner. I think that's important, and I want to reflect on Mr. Loader's efforts there, if I may, in my comments, Madam Mayor. We're okay with that? The second is okay with that, Madam Mayor?
Sorry, are you yet, Councillor McGregor?
Given that that advice is contrary to the one that we received yesterday.
You're freezing. Can you type it in your chat button and I'll read it out?
Prudent to put in the information as well.
Sorry, Councillor. Yeah, okay, great. So Councillor McGregor has written, given that advice is contrary to what was provided yesterday, is it not prudent to put that in too?
I'm happy for that if the mover is okay.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, could I just clarify with Councillor Best whether the real point of his addition is not the question of lawful or unlawful, but that it's from internal restrictions. I think that was the distinction that the acting CEO made.
Yes, and that it's lawful, Councillor Smith. I think Bob was saying we are unlawfully accessing funds, but funds for wages, as Mr. Loader and his team have identified, can lawfully be provided to our staff to be paid. And that is contrary to advice we received prior, but Mr. Loader's worked very hard overnight, and I must compliment him.
Yeah, look, I'm happy with that, Councillor Best, in order to facilitate this.
It's been a long afternoon. Madam Mayor, I would like to make comment to it. It may very well be one of our last addresses to the public. So thank you to everybody out there that has supported me over 25 years. And I don't think any of the councillors will really survive this going forward. If we go administration, we'll be tied up. Why is the clock at 1 minute 22, Madam Mayor? I haven't even started speaking. Madam Mayor?
Yeah, go, Councillor Best. It's moved.
Madam Mayor,
It's changed.
Thank you for fixing that. I would like to thank the community for their support, and I'm humbled to have received support for many, many years for the people I represent in the north of our region. This is an unfortunate chapter, a sorry saga. We have lost hundreds of millions of dollars in this term of council, and that's happened over the 3 years of this council. A net loss between when we were formed and now, it's about 194 million plus this current situation we find ourselves in. We can blame COVID, we can blame floods, we can blame amalgamation, and we could throw $100 million at those issues right now and make ourselves feel good. But at the end of the day, we're looking for more than $300 million here. So, you know, and there are clearly issues within the system of this council that are wanting that, and I would like to exact a more open comment around that, but I can't. As I say, we have lost an extraordinary amount of money on behalf of the ratepayers. It is so sad that there have been other councillors like Pillen, McLaughlin, Marquette and Gale who have constantly worked hard with myself to prosecute arguments about better fiscal management in the council, only to be, as Councillor Marquette will say, if you put a card request up for Mother Teresa to get a birthday card, Councillor Best, this council would vote it down. I've raised every Q report I possibly can on behalf of my community, every developer contribution underspend I have raised, borrowings I have raised, art houses at $200 million I have tried to raise. I have written on the 16th of September to the Minister asking, pleading with him, her to bring a external independent CFO into the council to try and yawl this out. And again, I've been kind of stood on for taking those issues. I didn't do that lightly. I've never done it in 25 years. But to come into this council, as many have, and criticise the former Wyong and Gosford councils, and then find this council on the precipice of extinction, it just sums it all up together. I do not hold the Minister in any disregard for this. I understand, and I met her only late last year, a very professional, a very understanding, and I would imagine extremely frustrated, along with Mr Crouch, our state member. We are stuck between people wanting to make this council look bad because of amalgamation. A business, I say, does not get smaller, Madam Mayor, in the modern era to become more effective. Yet all these shrinking violets that the world is ending because we've amalgamated, it's not the amalgamation, it's shocking and poor management. No company gets smaller to create efficiencies. Don't for 1 minute think you can get away with blaming the amalgamation. It should have been our day. The amalgamation should have created extraordinary efficiencies for our community, and this council has let it just crash. I'm terribly sorry to the community, and I personally apologise.
Thank you, Councillor Best. Councillor Greenway said she has an amendment.
Madam Mayor, before you go to that, could I just fix the wording? It didn't just quite get captured there. I think Councillor McGregor asked that at the end of that last number 9, that it say to pay current wages in a lawful manner contrary to previous advice. I think if we could just add that in. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Greenaway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did send some additional wording through about 3 o'clock, but apparently it hasn't been checked by anybody. I'm not sure where it is. Oh no, here it is. I just thought we should elaborate a little bit where it just says that the council authorised the mayor to seek independent legal advice. We should actually say more specifically what that is. I did ask that that be checked with by our legal first, so I don't know if it has. It's up. Is Ms Sullivan there? Do you know whether this is... Okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe Emma Roberts, Council's General Counsel, is having a look to ensure that any appropriate delegation is specifically articulated. We also need to look at the provisions of the councillor expenses and facilities policy with regards to the procurement of legal advice. So that will take a few more moments.
Councillor Vincent, I'll go to you. You said you've got a question or you want to speak, or sorry.
Is that working now?
Yep.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just make sure that clock's going all right. This feels like the last hurrah, doesn't it? This is the wrap up. So this is where we get to put final words on the record. And I suppose I should just rebuff a few councillors that have already spoken. And I should point out that the predicament we're in with the amalgamation is partly due to the decisions at Gosford and the decisions at Wyong and the councils back then. What I can say is, on the public record, Councillor Best was fully supportive of the amalgamation and voted for the amalgamation. And now, having gone into it, in my view, the amalgamation has not worked. It has not been good for the region or the district, and it's a failure. So I think Councillor Best, as part of that failure, should take responsibility for that situation. Councillor Best also seems to support an airport over Warnervale. Why you would build an airport and stick it over the city of Warnervale, which will have 30 to 40,000 people in the future, I don't know. I don't see the rationale with that. And it was Councillor Best and Councillor Eaton in their time that tried to remove that airport. So I think they had it right when they were trying to remove it. I think people really need to look at the back finances and accounting of the council. I've been looking at what's on the public record in the investment reports for 2019 and 2020, and there's figures there that just change. There's accounting structure and procedures that just change. And I really think that's where we should be paying more attention. And if this council does stay, we really should be getting access to our own independent advice, not advice that general managers or advice that directors arrange for us. And councillors have repeatedly asked for this. And today we still haven't had that ability to access that. I don't think we will have that ability. We may be gone before that's happened. But I would like to thank the community for giving me the opportunity to represent them. I can let them know that in my time on the Central Coast Council, I haven't voted for one budget that's come through this chamber. Firstly, because those budgets were inequitable. They were spending down at Gosford, and in my view, they were not looking after the North. So I'd put that on the record. I did not vote for the special rate rise, which Councillor Best did vote for, which was 6.9% compound imposed on the residents of the old Wyong Shire prior to the merger. I did not support that. But I think I'm out of words, Madam Mayor, and we're in the hands of the Minister for Local Government. And I really look forward to the outcome of any inquiry into the finances of the Central Coast Council.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Shane, Ms. Sullivan, do we have advice yet? Can we?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I may defer to Emma Roberts if she's available. She's had a look in terms of, she's reviewed Councillor Greenaway's proposed additional aspects for the motion, and I think I'll hand over to Emma as she's had a look at the specifics of the policy and may have some wording in relation to the delegation.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Greenaway. I received the wording only a few minutes ago, so I've been going through it.
Thank you.
I don't have a concern with the wording. Insofar as it says authorise, there is no delegation for the Mayor to directly instruct a solicitor. But I note that this motion is noting that she will be authorised to do so. In relation to the expenses that flow from that engagement, I have been looking just very briefly, and I have only just received this. 13 minutes ago, that in the councillor handbook at 76, council may have requested indemnify or reimburse a reasonable legal expenses, and it goes through a number of scenarios where that is the case. I'm just trying to find in there where it would relate to this particular instance, because that particular clause refers mainly to actions or responses to investigations. And in this particular instance, at this point in time, I don't think that either of those, show cause may be argued to be an action.
Even without my wording, is paragraph 8 not going to incur those same issues, like whether there's a delegation and whether it's going to incur legal expense?
No, Shane's just quite correctly pointed out that that section refers to councillor, not councillors, and this advice is going to the councillors as a whole. No, I have no suggested changes to that proposed motion.
With that in mind, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to take out number 8 because I think that is then repeated in number 10. So that might be one thing that needs to happen. Thank you.
So I have a question to Ms. Roberts. Given we've now got a notice of intention to issue a suspension order, so within 7 days, if we don't justify our existence, the Mayor, we don't have access to any of that, so therefore we can't do it anyway. Is that right? So once we're stood down, that's it.
We've got to do it this week.
I without having the benefit of looking into that expressed circumstance, I would think that is correct.
I'm not clear on what that was.
And well, councillors, my concern is that we need to be dealing with the intention to issue the suspension order rather than seeking legal advice for ourselves.
Well, on 9, I didn't know the exact phrase, so I said anticipated because at the time I sent it, I didn't think we'd received it. I sent this at 3. I don't know what time it came through. So I've called it anticipated notification of suspension. That's not what it's called. So that can be modified to reflect what it is actually called. I think you called it anyway, Madam Mayor, you know what you've received. We haven't seen it yet.
I've sent it through to all councillors. However, about an hour and a half ago, I tried to tell you that we needed to deal with this, but we've taken an hour and a half.
Okay, there it is. So
able to look at it. So,
notice of intention to suspend, if that could be changed. Instead of anticipated, we've received it. So in relation to the notice of intention to suspend.
Notice of intention to issue a suspension order.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was just the... Sorry, I'll stand corrected. I just read off the email. Haven't had a chance to look at the actual order.
Well, that's exactly right, because we've been on here for 5 hours now.
So notice and intention has a T as far as I know. So I think, oh, anyway.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to accept that. And I think the intention is clear.
Should I make a short address, Madam Mayor, now?
Go for it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This has just been a horrific afternoon, but I think it is important that we do obtain very professional advice and guidance to make sure we can stave off the suspension order, if appropriate. In the meantime, I would also, just in case, like to thank everyone who supported my campaign, who elected me, and for the absolute privilege of representing the community. At no stage do I ever want to leave the council in any sort of less than satisfactory state. So I think we would be better served by staying on board and making sure we're there to really put our heart and soul into figuring out what, if anything, has happened and how it can best be resolved if something has happened. So that's my personal position. There's no way I want to leave and have other people come in and take over. And, you know, with all due respect to the state government, I think they've got quite a few issues on their hands with other very high profile ICAC inquiries. And, you know, just to have this council taken over by that government is just something that I don't, it doesn't appeal to me. Anyway, I would also like to say that I'm grateful for the opportunity of progressing a lot of things that the community wanted to progress. And if this does end up going downhill, I can only say that I apologise for anything that I had hoped to achieve that I wasn't able to. But anyway, I'm still optimistic, as always, and hope that we do meet again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hogan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just taking some time to read some of the information that was sent to us. So I do think that we do have more pressing orders, pressing things to actually address. However, being that this is probably my last meeting, I felt it was only fitting that I might have a say after listening to others for the last 3 years. And you know, firstly, as Councillor Greenaway said, thank you for the privilege of actually representing our community. This is not the way that I wanted to go, and this has certainly been a hard 3 years of slog. I went into council for 2 reasons: one, to represent the community, and 2, to bring some honesty and integrity to the council. And I think for me, this is those 2 reasons where it sticks out as being so, I'm so gutted. I'm so gutted because for 3 years I have represented my community really well, and I think I have, and I know I have, in Badgerboy Ward. I've advocated and I've fought for all different infrastructure. It's been put in the budget, it's been pulled out of the budget, been put back in, and now I find, what am I advocating for? What am I fighting for when we don't have any dollars in the bank? In relation to the integrity of the organisation, I didn't get to the position where I do in life by being dishonest or even hanging with people that are dishonest, or nor with people who behave so poorly that it's a very sad reflection on society. And that's been my experience for 3 years. The behaviour has been woeful, absolutely woeful. The integrity and the honesty, we as councillors are only as good as the information that we've been given. And sadly, we've been given a hell of a lot of wrong information that has compromised our positions, both legally, ethically, morally, and certainly financially. I want to thank all of our constituents, our residents, our community members who've hung in there, and they've hung in there through thick and thin. They've asked the hard questions of us. They've wanted stuff done for their little piece of paradise, and I want to thank them for their support. But I also want to send a message to them: is don't give up the fight. You keep fighting for what's fair, fighting for what's equitable, but fight for justice and fight for the truth. And we may just get that in time. And I'd also like to thank the staff that have supported me in my work, and you all know who they are. So thank you. And my fellow members, our fellow team, thank you for your support. And we all know that I never know how to finish after I speak.
Thank you.
I've always struggled with that for 3 years. So anyway, I'd like to say thank you to the community and all the best. Cheers.
Councillors, I know, so I've got one more that wants to, final hurrahs, but we are meeting on Monday. So just to give you the heads up, you're not getting out of it that easy. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah. So we are meeting on Monday, are we? Or?
Well, 7 days when I count is the 28th of October.
Okay, then I thought this might be the last time. I thought you might give everyone a chance to go around the room. But look, I'll just say once again, thank you for the opportunity to the people who elected me, and thank you to everyone that all of us in the room here. We've all come thrown in together. We've all got differing views, and I've very much enjoyed the interactions, good and bad, and robust, and at times quite confronting, and at times quite jovial. But at the end of the day, I believe all of us here in this room are all here for the community. I don't think any of us are here for any other reason than the community, and that's why we've all stood up. Sorry, was that Councillor Hogan?
She sneezed.
No, she didn't. She said the word rubbish, but that maybe she isn't. But that
sorry, Councillor McLaughlin, I was actually looking at a text message. It wasn't to do with you.
Okay, apology accepted. There you go. We all get on well in the long run. It has been an interesting journey. We could tear each other apart and all that sort of thing, but I won't take that road. I think we've all got to pull together and show the minister that we can come together on this sort of thing. And as much as I expect the administration to be here, I don't blame the minister for putting the administrator through the council. It does need some change, but I would like to see the council the opportunity to get to continue what it started. I think the amalgamation is the right thing. I do support the amalgamation. I don't believe that we need 2 CEOs. I don't believe we need 2 mayors. I don't believe we need an extra 5 councillors. There is savings right through the whole thing that we can do, and I do think as a region, the Central Coast should come out of the shadows of the Hunter or Northern Sydney, and that's the trouble with the funding. It goes either to the Hunter or Northern Sydney, and at the moment it gets ticked off against the Central Coast. A police station gets built at Hornsby, and they can claim that's before the regional council in the region. That's where we will be. That was taken as funding for the Central Coast. So I think as a region we have to stand up, and I think the regional council is important for that reason. But once again, I hope that we can resolve this and hope that we can move through. If we can't, I'll be the first to say that I think I'll agree with Councillor Hogan. I don't think the behaviour it has been good, and I do believe the opposing forces of merger and demerger was where we went wrong. We were elected to get in there and do things, and of course, politics being politics, you've got opposing ideas, and it was a liberal amalgamation. I understand opposition politics. Labor wanted to pull it apart, and for the first 2 years, that's what you tried to do, so you can't blame the amalgamation when there's been a deliberate attempt to actually pull the two councils apart, go back where we were. So there was that impasse, there was that political impasse. And once again, the minister might say enough's enough, and that's where we might be. But anyway, moving on, let's get together on Monday night and see what we can do, and see if we can work through this and go forward as a Central Coast Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Right, a reply, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, clearly, councillors are feeling, hit by this news, and I understand that and appreciate that. I think we're all, suffering from that a little bit. I would like to just focus on the motion, though, and look, I think one of the important things is our commitment to our staff and the fact that they are being paid tonight. And, I actually thank the Minister for bringing forward those 2 quarterly payments for that financial assistance grant. So I think we should do that as a first up. I am disappointed that the Minister has chosen to issue this order, but I'd have to say I think we've got a case to put to the Minister that staff and council as an organisation are responding appropriately, that we're engaging the consultants that need to be engaged, that we're working with ARIC, and that we're addressing those issues. So I look forward to, over the next 7 days, that we do put together a response to the Minister, and in my view, put the case for why that the order by the Minister is not appropriate at this point in time. I think it's easy to confuse the fact that we have a very messy democracy, and I know that anybody that watches our council meetings would surely agree with that democracy is very messy, takes a lot of time, goes off the rails, but that should not be mistaken for the commitment and the efforts and the decision-making of our council and our staff in uncovering this issue and now responding to it and putting forward a pathway out of this financial crisis. Really, that's what we need to focus on. I don't think people should be distracted by our messy democracy. I think if you scratch the surface of state and federal politics, you will see an equal messy democracy. So, Madam Mayor, I certainly am committed, and I hope other councillors and staff are committed to putting a solid case to the Minister as to why this order is not appropriate at this point in time. It should be our residents and ratepayers that decide on their council at the next election, not in this way when we're actually working very hard, despite the messiness, very hard to address those issues and work to restore council, address the issues and ensure that we do the best for our community, our council and our staff. So, Madam Mayor, I note that we will be meeting again on Monday, and just very quickly looking at that notice from the Minister, I suspect with the work that we undertake over the next 7 days, that we may actually need to have an extraordinary meeting in 7 days, dare I say, because it does suggest that whatever response we provide needs to be tabled or should be tabled at a council meeting, and I suspect that would be unlikely on Monday night. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I will therefore put the motion as moved by Councillor Smith and second by Councillor McGregor. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Matthews, Councillor Smith, Councillor Vincent, Councillor McGregor, Councillor Hogan, Councillor Burke, Councillor Best, Councillor Sundstrom, Councillor Greenway, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Holstein, Councillor Mertens. All those against? Abstention? Councillor Pillen. I therefore declare the motion carried. Councillors and staff, I therefore declare the meeting closed at 5:27. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. You've done well. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, 4 o'clock Friday.